Politics is something that has direct bearing on our daily lives. It has direct bearing on our daily lives, and we must talk about it. It's something that we cannot do without, right? So, for things to be right, for us to achieve a nation of our dream, we need to go that trajectory, and that's what we decided to go. Let's go political a bit. So, today we want to discuss the role of organizational leaders and religious leaders in achieving the nation of our dream. The role that they play. So some leaders of organizations, civil society, religious and the rest, they have roles to play. Cultural leaders, they have roles to play in order for us to achieve that nation of our dream. And that's what we're going to discuss, and we'll have our political analyst with us today. So let's get to hear his expert analysis on the roles of civil society, organizational leaders, cultural leaders, religious leaders in achieving the nation of our dream. We have Mr. Pat Obene with us. So let's hear from you. What roles are these people, the gladiators that I just mentioned, the people in question, what roles do they have to play in achieving the nation of our dream?
Thank you so much for having me. I think very importantly is to have the basic understanding of how governance or a constitutional democracy works, as Nigeria is trying to experiment. You recall that if you understand if you put our age of independence together, the military had a longer time. Now we're 25 years democratic experience. So you look at the average Nigerian critical stakeholders, organizations, religious-based groups, they still carry on with the mentality of the military junta, which leadership entails, others flows from the top. The subjects have no rule. Everybody must obey the last order. And in my view, that is a very serious problem in trying to develop the Nigeria of our dream. As a people, we need to realize that problem and have a better understanding on how to conquer it. Otherwise, we'll just be going around vicious circle and blaming the wrong reasons. Politics and governance is too dangerous and expensive to live in the hands of few people. In fact, that is the whole essence of a democratic experience. So first of all, what is most important is participation. The people, organized groups, faith-based groups, first need to divorce the mentality of religious activities has nothing to do with political leadership. Is not correct. Otherwise, even the good book itself had told of a certain character called Isaiah. Apparently he lied to us when he said, "Unto us a child is born, his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, and the government shall be upon his shoulder." So the question we should be asking ourselves, what government was Isaiah talking about? It is the government of Nigeria, and that it is the believers that must be seen in the process of formulating that government. But it's not what? Unfortunately, the people themselves had a wrong narrative by those who are privileged to inherit power. Shortly 99, when the military said goodbye. So you needed another voice to bring in the new narrative to say no, even in line with as deficient as the 1999 Constitution amended is, as it were, that you look at section 14, that sovereignty belongs to the people. People even have the constitutional powers to, first of all, elect or organize the leaders that will make the government, the people that will be in authority. But unfortunately, like I said from the beginning, they carried on with the mentality of obey the last order. So you find certain individuals, 1999, who are privileged to state resources, trying to dictate, in other words, suppressing that popular participation. To the extent you even find them go to religious houses. And in turn, the religious leaders, again, if we borrow from the good book, we saw a time there was need to have leader in Israel. And a certain character called the family of David was visited by perhaps the person who had the mantle, who, of course, if we relate it here, would be like the umpire, who was there, the prophet, to say there is need. And we saw that when the father of David brought out his children, the character who was to decide the leader was not concerned about the number. What there was a particular person
he was looking out for.
So then, what you find the religious leaders do? We're talking about their rules. You find them more than 10 political aspirants want to be governor, presidents, what have you. If a governor candidate comes to a particular region there, he tells you, go, the Lord is with you, you will win. He collects some money. The next man comes, he says, go, you will win. The third person comes, the same pastor tells him, go, the Lord told me this election, you are the governor. Can you imagine the amount of confusion thrown in? Against the standard we saw, that the man of God, the person who was to, did not tell Jesse, who was father, to say, all your children will be
are good to go, that they take all the buses.
This has happened. Now, it was in the religious group that in promotion of this attitude and this rule had brought us confusion, because in that wise, you find them supporting the wrong leaders. That is a contributory factor. Then you find also the political class in turn using the state resource to, and in addition to weaponizing poverty, to say, okay, let's keep them down for them to be loyal. The idea of a democratic society that first of all talks about internal democracy. When you talk about it, that is, everybody is equal in the political party. That party needs to thrive on its ideology, which is encouraging popular participation. They say no, it has to be the person who is privileged to the treasury dictating, thereby suppressing the role of the people, because naturally it is the people's participation that would determine the selection or election of the would-be leaders. So that value had been long suppressed since 1999. And as a people, for whatever reason, we tend to tolerate it and accept it. So what is the end result? Is a negative impact of the wrong leader is produced, because from the beginning, he has no vision for the people on how to develop the government. You see him turning out anti-people, anti-social, anti-economic policies, because he is not a product. So that brings us back to show that, which means the people had not sufficiently get the right realization and understanding of how a democratic society works in trying to build a government of their own and a Nigeria of their dream, if you ask me. In addition, personally, I had years now, which is still a vision, a program I designed to say role of religious leaders in political leadership. The need that when you say people should pray, God is not going to fall down. The same members of different churches are the electorates. And God is the one who had created the resources for our welfare and well-being. So there is no way we can divorce what the preacher man says on Sunday and what the governor or the president does on Monday to Friday. So hence, the process to elect the leader must be very important and strategic to all stakeholders, be it religious leaders, traditional leaders, because they actually command the electorates. They point a direction based on careful assessment of aspirants. Do you know that the religious organizations and trends have been so, they've been in their slumber for too long that they'll be sitting down on their rights, to the extent that even as division as when the political class able to form themselves, the issue of budget presentation, which is another core value of their participation. Budget is something that determines the economic direction of a people. So there is no way you will turn a blind eye or express less concern or less interest. That continuous expression of carelessness, it's not my business. But in the end, recall that we all go to the same market. Because whatever decision and indecisions or policies
of the government
affects us directly and indirectly. Yes. Now, when we slip over that right, we feel that we don't have any role to play. We end up calling the people back for prayers and all manner of church, when actually what is necessary there is to organize ourselves peacefully and carry out a direct action, either by way of writing. So say, look, first of all, Your Excellency or Mr. Government, this treasury, the Commonwealth belongs to all of us, whether as traditional leaders, community leaders, religious leaders, youth groups. So what is required as a way of a manifestation of exercising our constitutional powers, we want to make input in your budget conception planning and execution. We don't see this happen. And of course, it is still traced to what I told you earlier. Poor education, political education, because there hasn't been a deliberate and intentional effort by civil societies or groups to bring in a new narrative which will overtake that military narrative, to think that the process of good governance means everybody obey the last order. Anything the governor says is law. Anything the president says, then there is no need to talk about representative system, because the legislative or the legislature is actually the embodiment, because we all can be in the government house at the same time. So, but our common goal is,
we must have a representative.
yes, our common goal is to build a stable and a society where social justice prevails. Social justice is the even distribution of means of production and taking care of our needs. Now, and I believe strongly that since the faith-based group or those groups are the ones who actually command a greater number of the electorate, that is the more reason they must show greater concern in the process. For example, the government announces that after a fiscal year, they begin to mobilize, use the platform, their platform, because it's like, if you watch these days around us now, the people tend to believe they are preacher men, even more than the political class. Exactly. So if there is a situation, a socio-economic, an economic injustice or social unpopular policies, it's part of their spiritual exercise. To say, my people come together, XYZ is your representative, I offer this space, let's invite him to say, this is our position. We had observed that in the previous budget, what the government did from scarce resources did not capture this area. There is increase of unemployed youths, lack of housing, poor sanitation system, no production, no industries. Therefore, this is the position of our group. These are natural, constitutional, spiritual, economic responsibility of pastors, because that would be in keeping with even the goods. In the book of Romans, say, be obedient to civil authority. If God is not aware that there will be a participation by religious groups, traditional leaders, why will the Bible make that reference?
Constitutional authority.
Constitutional authority.
Yeah.
So that letter is not about only when they come and visit your church and look at one place, say, I donate 2 million. Just, no, that is not the idea. We should be worried more about the community wealth, not the individual wealth. So I needed to add that at that level, wherever as deficient as the process which I've established earlier, but even when the government is formed, it's not enough to go back to our bed. In fact, that places a greater responsibility on us to hold them accountable by participating in the process of budgeting. And the government also empowers the people to say, we are the lawmakers who should retire back for us to have these debates, fail to do so. We invoke powers of recall. Now, these are things that, if I believe strongly, if a combination of the religious groups and the traditional combine, it will provide sufficient capacity to bend the hand of those of them in authority to listen to that demand, other than just leaving it in the hands of few of us as activists, because they will say, no, we're looking for money, we don't even have money, so no need to listen to us. But because they go to these same churches and respect their kings, even if there is a trend of fast eroding regard for traditional leaders, but the few that are still respected can combine their efforts with other religious groups, mobilize people and society people to begin to call these ones in authority to say, this is our role, that it is our constitutional, social, that's why it is called social contract. The act of voting is a social contract. So even in terms of law, you owe us a duty. So I've been calling for this even before we have this platform to discuss it, that must be the standard, one way to penetrate, the heart of the government, bend the hand of the government to begin to do the right things that will lead us to the Nigeria of our dream.